Yeah, I think your connection's going to be better with that one. Yeah, it's better. Can you hear me? You can't hear me? I can hear you now, but
No.
I can hear you, but yeah, okay. Yeah, it's better now.
All right, hold on. Trying to see how this is gonna.
Looks like you're looking kind of off to the left or whatever.
Does it?
Yeah, not much. It's not bad.
Okay. Let's see.
So Ryan's on quarantine in Japan, so if he has to stop to do facial recognition, that'll be why. But we're going to discuss some of the UFC fights if you wanted to. Like, which ones would you want to talk about?
Honestly, I only remember the co-main and main O'Malley's fight. Those are the three that kind of, come
What
to
about
mind.
Garbrandt getting knocked out? Let's start with that one. Because he's been knocked out like 4 of his last 5 fights.
It happened, yeah.
As a guy, you think, because when you stop fighting, for example,
Mm-hmm.
how was that for you?
How was it to stop fighting and
When you felt like maybe it's something you should do
stop?
or wanted to do?
What do you mean?
No, when when you think he's probably maybe thinking that, but maybe.
I think Cody, we're seeing, I think he's just, the cumulative damage is just, he's getting knocked out easier and easier now. And maybe it's getting close to that time where he's going to have to say, you know what, maybe it's time to call it a day and make a transition and into something else. But that, for me, it was a little easier. I mean, I was ready to make a transition. But I think for a lot of people, it's okay. And this is something I kind of had to go through too. But it's like, okay, but if I call it a day and I quit or I retire, what do I do next, right? So those thoughts are probably creeping in. But then again, the fighter's the last one to know sometimes, you know what I mean? But looking at his performance, he's still good. He's sharp. He's got the skills, but I don't know. He's been knocked out quite a few times lately, right?
Yeah, and he had dropped down to 25 for that fight. 125.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? When he's coming in lighter and, he still gets clipped like that.
He's definitely cutting a lot of weight. I don't know if the answer in going down in weight is the answer, though. You know what I mean? Like, you can only cut so much weight, and then it's kind of like, are you going to perform up to what you're used to? And you may not, right? Because you're cutting so much weight. I think we saw that with TJ Dillashaw when he tried to make, what was it, 125 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that cutting the weight and going down a weight class is the answer. I mean, you would think that you would take that punching power with you, but man, weight cutting takes a toll on your body.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned O'Malley. Maybe we could talk about that because I don't know. What do you think about O'Malley? They haven't really put him in there with real deep, but he obviously has ability, though.
Man, he surprises me every time he fights. Like, I'm not really a fan of his trash talk and his hairstyles and all that stuff, but hey, I give props where props are due, man. He put hands on that guy last night, and I was impressed, man. He did well. I think the UFC is pushing him harder. They did, like last year, and then he had a few setbacks, but he's still young, though, isn't he? How old is he?
Yeah, I don't think he's very old at all. Yeah.
Right. So he's still coming into himself, and I think he's going to be well, he's obviously really good, right? Mm-hmm. Is he chip material? No, we'll see. What was it that happened with his ankles early on in his career? A couple years ago, he had a couple losses. What was that about?
Well, yeah, one loss to Cheeto Vera where he got kicked in his kind of low calf, and his foot gave out. Like
yeah,
sometimes.
But he didn't break his foot, right?
No, it's just that he couldn't stand up. So, yeah.
That's kind of weird to me. I mean, like, that's
It's
kind of
happened to a few guys. You're seeing it every now and then. Michael
right.
Chandler had that happen to him. He fought a guy, Brent Primus, in Bellator. And he
Mm-hmm.
tried to continue fighting, but his foot kept flopping.
Well, yeah. I mean, what do you do if that happens, right?
Yeah.
You can't, I guess, right?
Yeah, eventually the ref stopped it because it kept flopping underneath him. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. That's weird, but it wasn't broken, huh?
no. Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, man, he's good, man. He's good. Who's the champion in the division?
At Bantam? Jan.
Give me a second. I got to check in.
Yeah. Ryan's in quarantine, so he has to do like facial recognition. They make sure he's in his location that he's supposed to be at.
Yeah, man. It feels like I'm in jail or something close to it.
Now, let's talk about when you do the facial recognition, they're verifying that you are where you are.
Yeah, basically they're using GPS to track you where you are at that time, and then they have to. Yeah, they're using facial recognition to make sure you're in your home. So you have to stare at the screen for like 30 seconds or whatnot.
But you can't leave that location to get any food or nothing?
You're not supposed to, no. You're supposed to, like, a lot of people, they'll do like Uber Eats or whatnot.
Oh, yeah. In Japan, they're doing that?
They have Uber Eats and they have, the local equivalent. But yeah, no, they have delivery. Always have.
Yeah, that's right. We used to get pizzas out there, remember? Domino's. Yeah. Yeah. You made a good point that I wanted to focus on. Well, let's talk about the co-main first because, before we get in that point you made. But, I was talking to this guy Derek this morning. He had actually said something that I thought was interesting. He always says it's usually the person you don't expect is the one who ends up beating the person, It's not the person you're waiting for.
I did not see that coming, man. I thought Amanda was going to wreck her. I honestly did. I thought she was going to walk through her. And shit, I was surprised.
Because, no one thought Buster Douglas was going to do it. They thought it'd be like Evander Holyfield or someone like that.
Hey, Buster Douglas.
Kind of the person you're not expecting to do it is the one who does.
Yeah, no, that was crazy when Buster beat Tyson. But, yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I think we haven't seen Amanda tested, right? That's what a friend was pointing out to me because Amanda's been so dominant. She knocked out Ronda. She knocked out Chris Cyborg.
Valentina's fight was competitive with her, though.
But we didn't see her get stunned or hurt and have
right.
Foot, right? We fight through adversity. We haven't seen that, right? And the second she got clipped on the chin, she started looping her punches, and you could see it in her eyes that she started doubting herself. Doubt was creeping in. So I mean, yeah, we hadn't seen that out of her, and she got clipped. It happens to us all. But yeah, no, I was surprised because again, I thought she was going to walk through Pinna.
Yeah, and like you said, it looked a little sloppy at times.
Early on, it wasn't. She was dominant for the first round. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an easy fight for her. But like I said, she got clipped, and then her technique, it didn't go out the window, but it was noticeably sloppy.
Yeah. It was weird. Yeah, it kind of went, like you said, the technique just totally changed on her.
Yeah.
And then she kind of quit at the end.
She did, right? Like, and I feel like you can't always train for, though, right? Because, I mean, you get your battles in the gym, and you get clipped, you get hurt, you win some, you lose some in training. But in the fight, you get hurt. I mean, it's kind of one of those things you have to experience first time, and she's probably going to come back stronger for it. And next time she gets clipped in a fight, she's going to know how to deal with it, and that might not happen again. So, we'll see if they run it back and they do a rematch.
But did it surprise you that she kind of tapped before?
Yes. You know how my feelings about that. I don't, especially when it comes to submissions, not that I don't believe in tapping. I mean, you get caught, you get caught. But the focus should be on escaping the choke, right?
Right.
Or submission. And it seemed like we didn't see her fighting the hands. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We we didn't see any of that. So where was the effort to kind of get out? And maybe that's because she was kind of mentally defeated already. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably just kind of, she got hurt, she was shook, and when the choke was on, she hadn't recovered. So, you know what I mean? It probably all started with the punches.
Now, I wanted to get in this point you made yesterday because I thought it was a good point. You know, when we get to the fight with Oliveira and Poirier, where you were talking about how you think American fighters have kind of, maybe not just American fighters, but certain fighters are having trouble adjusting to some of the, you know, against the fence takedowns that
what we were talking about yesterday, yeah. So what I noticed was Oliveira, I don't know his background as far as, I mean, I know he's got good jiu-jitsu and he's got good kickboxing, but traditionally, right, when we're watching the UFC, you got double legs and single legs are probably the most widely used takedowns, be it out in the open or on the cage, right?
Right.
There's not many people that are going to, you know, you got Khabib that pushes you up against the wall and makes you fight him against the cage or whatnot. But how Oliveira was kind of getting that waist grip and circling to his back, and he was going for all intents and purposes, not traditional takedowns as we're used to seeing. And I think that might have surprised Dustin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point because MMA is kind of cyclical, you know, and it was like these techniques that maybe worked early in the sport are working again.
Yeah, you know who used that a lot, like that waist grip, and then is Aoki Shinya. He would clinch with you, he would pummel inside, he'd get a waist grip, lock both hands around your waist, then you'd start fishing a hook in, and then he'd drag you down to the ground and take your back from there, or he would circle to your back and then jump on your back. And that it looked identical to what Oliveira did. Stylistically, it was like, it was like what hit people's back in the day.
Yeah. It's interesting how these techniques that kind of, like you said, the Superman punch, you don't see as much anymore, but we saw that a lot.
Yeah, back then.
A few years ago. And we'll probably see it again in 10 years from now. You know, it'll come back around.
Things phase out, phase back in, right?
Yeah. So I think that's what you're seeing with that, like you mentioned. But what'd you think of Oliveira and Poirier?
I'm not going to lie, I wanted Dustin to win. I thought he was going to win. I thought the first round was kind of like, you know, same with Amanda Nunes. First round, he was dominant. He knocked Oliveira down. And then it all started in round two. Once Oliveira got that clinch and he eventually got top position, right? There was some, they got caught in the clinch, and then Dustin rolled through and ended up on bottom at one point. I was questioning why he rolled like that to end up on bottom in the first point. I thought he could have just pulled out, but I think maybe Oliveira was holding the gloves a little bit, which, illegal or not, we've all done it. I know I used to do it all the time. It is what it is. But he ended up on bottom, and then I didn't know why he didn't fight back up. I was watching the post-fight press conference. He said he didn't want to scramble and end up giving up his back because Oliveira is so good on the ground. So, yeah, man, I thought Dustin was going to win it, but Oliveira forced him to fight him from the clinch and forced him to grapple him, and man, he climbed up on his back and got that choke, and what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about, like, if you were to fight Gaethje, do you think most people would pick Gaethje to win, or it seems like people still aren't convinced that Oliveira is maybe the best guy?
I don't know, man. I feel like they're not, like, I don't know that when they're hyping the fights, it's 50-50 as far as the hype for Oliveira versus the hype for his opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And that, there's probably a language barrier there, and it's easier to, I'm sure there's several reasons for it that make a lot of sense, right? But I was surprised. I bet against Oliveira twice, once with Chandler and now with Poirier. So, and Oliveira won both those fights, and he did so really well. So, oh no, I'm hesitant to bet against him again. You know what I mean? I think Gaethje, man, he's fucking tough. I think technically speaking, probably Oliveira might be the cleaner fighter, and especially, again, it'll be interesting to see if Oliveira forces the clinch. It could look just like this fight yesterday. You know what I mean? He might be able to get to Justin's back.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting card. What'd you think of Cruz? I mean, Cruz fought on the early prelims. I know a lot of people made a big deal out of that.
I was happy to see him win. I don't know. That was kind of one of those fights where was it going to be like a passing of the torch type of fight, or was Cruz going to still, remain in the top echelon of the division? And I was, man, as a person that's been in Cruz as, one of the older fighters, and, kind of waiting to see whether you're going to make that another push towards the top, or are you on your way out? I was happy to see him win, man. Hey, he got his hand raised. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, he did fight a little bit more. He exchanged more, I would say, as the fight.
He got clipped a couple times. I remember early, and he get hurt, dropped once maybe even, and then he kind of had to scramble. Mm-hmm. And he fought through it. He got a really interesting reversal, one that we don't really see that often, where he had his arm back through the guy's thigh, and he rolled through, got top position. I thought that was creative and kind of, it got him to the top position, and he was able to recover.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see maybe him fight O'Malley, because I know they've kind of gone back and forth a little bit.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I'd be down to see that fight. They should do it. What's the right now?
They've kind of exchanged some barbs, so I think that would make sense. I know they had talked about Yanez, who I like a lot too. That would be a good fight. O'Malley.
Who was?
Huh?
You said, who was that name you just said?
Adrian Yanez. He's from the Texas area, and he's a good striker. He's a pretty efficient striker. I would say boxer. He's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, well, no, I don't know who he is, but yeah, man, I'm not up on everything like I used to be.
Yeah. Have you been paying attention to Ryzen at all since you're,
what? I was hoping to come and see the New Year's Eve event, but there's just no big names fighting this year. I saw it 2 years ago when they had Fedor versus Rampage, and they had, I want to say they had Horiguchi and Tenshin, and they had a lot of people on the card. This year, it's not really a great card. I thought about checking out Triple G versus Murata, but boxing, they were supposed to hold that at Saitama Super Arena. That got postponed. So just, combat sports in general in Japan aren't what they used to be. And Rising, I think we all hoped it was going to be Pride 2.0.
Yeah.
Pretty clear that it's just not, you know what I mean? They don't have the names.
But I think the COVID has hurt them too, because they can't bring anyone in.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
They can't.
I mean, who would they? Well, they got a partnership with Bellator, I think.
Right.
They send Horiguchi over. He just lost to Pettis, and Horiguchi's an amazing fighter. But like outside of that relationship, even without COVID, I don't know which fighters they could get, right? Like, because it just seems like UFC has the top contracts. Then you got one championship. They got DJ over there. Yeah, I mean, who would they sign, even without COVID?
Yeah, I mean, they could sign some guys that nobody's signed, just some.
Right, they would have to build talent, right?
They wouldn't have to be like elite guys, but
Yeah.
it has hurt them, the COVID thing, because I know I talked to another guy and he said they can't bring nobody in. You know, it's all
Oh,
travel.
right. Yeah, shit, I forgot. Yeah, the borders are shut. So, yeah, tourists can't get in, and they've been shut for, what, 2 years now?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to hurt them. The Japanese promotions are getting crushed on
No,
that stuff.
right. You're right. They would have to issue them probably work visas, and there's so much more paperwork that they'd have to do. That opened up a little bit last month. They were allowing people to come over for work, but with the new variant, they just shut borders completely again, and they're not letting anybody in. Yeah.
If you guys have any questions for Ryan about fighting in Japan or stuff like that, you could ask him in the chat and see if you could answer them. But Ryan fought in Shuto. He fought for a long time. I don't even know how many years, but a long time. I know that.
Yeah, decade, somewhere around there.
What's that?
It was about a decade, something like that.
Yeah. Well, now, what's it like being up in Seattle? I mean, having the gym up there.
Oh man, I really like Seattle. We chose it because it's not like Southern California where you have all the world champions, but you got Matt Hume, you got Ivan Salveri, you got Marcelo Alonso, you got a handful of really, really good places to train. But at the same time, it's a big enough city where we can all coexist and do well for ourselves. And yeah, man, I like Seattle a lot. It's working out well. Gym is growing. Lucky enough to have students teaching in my place while I'm here. We usually, go down to like a holiday schedule for December at least. And I do take a vacation in December, but things are going really well. I'm hoping to have a few fighters fighting early next year. So as soon as I get back, we're going to jump into camp and start working towards that.
Now, Showboat, I know the answer to this question, but he's asking you what made you get into MMA. That's kind of a story, perhaps, but
what made me get into MMA? I saw UFC 2. Hoist Gracie wrecked everybody, and I was doing traditional martial arts at the time, and I was like, I got to learn what that guy's doing. And I think a lot of us kind of from that generation we always wanted to answer the question what worked and what didn't, what style was the best. And at least back then in the late 90s, jiu-jitsu was it. And then yeah, that kind of sparked the interest and grew from there.
Yeah, you were doing kung fu, right?
I was doing kung fu, yeah, and judo.
Yeah.
And as far as grappling is concerned, my base is in judo. Getting my black belt here in Japan, but even judo, as far as MMA is concerned, it just didn't transition as well as jiu-jitsu did and wrestling does. So yeah, but that's how I at least got my start. And then once I came to Japan, it was much back then, comparatively speaking, it was just much more open. So we trained MMA in the late 90s in Japan, when in America it was still style versus style, or you were doing jiu-jitsu over here and boxing over there, whereas in Japan you could just do MMA even back then.
Yeah, that's kind of what Gono was saying. He was already putting everything together as early as 1993.
Yep, exactly.
And what you did was unusual compared to most people, because you went to Japan, even though you said you wanted to learn what Hoist was doing. You didn't choose to learn it in the States. You were.
After my research, it was like, if I'm being honest, back then, I'm from Michigan. It was hard to go learn jiu-jitsu where there was no jiu-jitsu in Michigan. So what that meant back then is you would have had to go to Torrance, California, and learn it from the Gracie Academy. And there was just so many stories coming out of that area, whether, you're really getting what you thought you were getting, were they being as truthful as, and sharing all of what jiu-jitsu entails. They were, it was questionable back then. And then a lot of the fighters were going to Japan and doing well in Japan, like Hickson and, Valley Tudo, Japan, and a lot of the major events were happening in Japan. So I figured, you know what, let me just go over here and learn it firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, it made sense to do it back then. But
Yeah,
now,
today I wouldn't make the same choice, right? America has the best gyms. I wouldn't come to Japan to do MMA today.
yeah. It's sad that that's the way it is, because the Japanese were so influential on the techniques back then.
It's crazy when you think of it, because I'd say in the late 90s, Japan was probably 10 years ahead of America. And today, it's probably 10 years behind as far as MMA is concerned. And, how does that happen? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This guy mentioned the school you're at, Chan's.
Yes, I was at Chan's Kung Fu. That's where I got my start. Yeah, man.
And this other guy, Brandon, was asking if you're able to get the takedown on him anymore.
Get the takedown on who?
Brandon. It's not in the chat. They're sending it to me in these questions. There's a little question button they can send stuff to.
Okay. Brandon who?
Brandon, let me see. Brandon Rasta? Brandon Varsta?
Brandon Barsta. I'm drawing a blank.
Brandon Varasteh. Arresta?
Oh, I know him. Hey, what's up? I'd take him down all day. He was training with me in Dubai, and he's got a judo background. He's freaking tough, man. He's tough, but I'm always rolling. I'm always talking shit to my younger guys, and I'll still take him down all day.
Yeah.
I went out and saw him out in Vancouver, and we went to the UFC gym and trained out there. It was good, man.
Yeah. Bobby Southworth just came in here. You were fighting with him at Super Bra.
Yes, we did, man. Hey, Bobby, what's up? It's been a minute.
Tough.
See, that was Back in like 90. No, that was like 2000 maybe.
Yeah, there he is. Bobby South. Be South.
So,
been a minute.
Yeah, yep. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Good, man. I just wanted to bring you in here because I had Ryan on here. I thought it'd be cool to kind of reminisce on some of that stuff.
Oh, I Ryan, what's up, man? I thought it was Chris Sanford, actually, to tell you the truth. I didn't realize that was Ryan Bow.
Yes, it is.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you? You good?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah, no complaints.
I don't think I've seen you since we were out in Hawaii together.
I think you came to the gym once or twice when AKA was still on Hillsdale, but that either way, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. Are you still out in California, or where are you at now?
We moved to San Antonio, and my wife, her job got acquired, and so I had to move out here. We've been here since 2010.
Okay, that's up. No, because I saw you on Facebook. You're teaching. Aren't you teaching over at the UFC gym, jiu-jitsu?
I was over there, but during COVID, they got shut down, and then the owners sold the gym out from under us to a competing school, and didn't even tell anybody. So,
hear that, man? Damn.
Yeah. Right now, I'm just teaching out of a garage right now, so
rebuilding. Hear you.
I'm not ready to financially commit because seems like every 3 months it's a Lambda, Delta, Omicron, Mu, whatever. New thing is happening, so.
And they started trying to shut us down again. Yeah, I know, you're right. We were shut down for, I think, 6 months or more in 2020.
Where are you?
I'm in Seattle now. I'm in Japan at the moment, but gym's in Seattle.
Oh, nice. Do you have your own spot?
Yeah. It's Fight Gods MMA. And
say that again?
Fight Gods MMA.
Oh, Fight Gods MMA. Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. So we're doing it, but we got shut down for 6 months, if not a little more.
Are you close to Ivan Salaberry?
He's downtown. We're up in the Ballard, Crown Hill area, so we're there's a little distance between us, but I haven't made over to Ivan's yet.
Nice. Yeah, I I might have been up in Seattle a little bit because my daughter, she graduated law school, but she was interning with a firm there, a firm called Stoll Reeve. I guess they have some offices there. But then she was interning. She had to do a clerkship with this federal circuit court judge in Delaware for a year. And during that time with COVID and everything, she applied for this. You would know the name. I can never remember the name of the firm, like Chadwick and Latham or something. It's like a big deal. Like they're the lawyers for like Berkshire Hathaway, or, you know, they're like pretty big time. And it's in New York. So instead of going to Seattle, back to Seattle, she ended up going to New York. So that I'll be going out that way to visit her instead of coming to Seattle.
Well, if you're ever in town, man, look us up, man. Come through.
I will, for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
sure you got some studs.
We'll talk about Super Brawl right quick. I mean, I remember seeing both of you kind of. I know, Bobby, you said you weren't repping Frank, but it kind of maybe TJ made it appear that way. And Ryan, what?
Yeah, I mean, Frank was a big deal at that time, but when we met, like, I had been teaching at the Half Gracie School in Mountain View for a couple of years, and Half and I had a falling out, and a friend of mine suggested I go to AKA because, like, Brian, I don't know if you remember Brian Johnston, who fought in the UFC back in the day. Yeah. So he had a submission fighting crew there, and so I went in, and actually when I was, like, walking in the door for the first time to meet Javier, Frank was walking out the door. It was like maybe 18 or 20 hours after he had that knee KO of Ensign to win the Pancrase title.
Yep.
So me and Javier hit it off, and that's how I was. He offered me, he would teach me striking if I ran the jiu-jitsu program at AKA. Yeah. So I founded the jiu-jitsu program there, and he was teaching me striking, and Frank was there. And, you know, back then Frank was like, because of Ken and Hoist or whatever, it was like jiu-jitsu and submission fighting or whatever they called their style. So it was like we knew each other and we trained together quite a bit, but I never was really like a Frank Shamrock submission fighting guy because I was a BJJ guy.
Yeah, you were doing the jiu-jitsu. I remember now. Yeah, this is late 90s you're talking.
Yeah.
I was there. Yeah, I remember that.
So Frank was a big deal, and like I wanted to – the whole reason I went there was because I wanted to start fighting, and so he agreed. It was more like he was my manager, and he's the one who got me. Yeah. A week before that fight in Super Brawl, I'd actually fought in this thing called Neutral Grounds, if you remember Neutral Grounds. They put a lot of guys into the UFC. Yeah. So actually my first fight, I fought this guy, Jason Godsey. So I was making my first fight, and they were introducing him. He had like 30-something fights already and had already fought twice in the UFC.
You had him for your first fight?
Yeah, that was my first fight. It was different back then. It was, there wasn't all this 15 to 20 amateur fights and all that stuff. It was, you trained jiu-jitsu, you did your boxing, and then you went and fought or you didn't. Yeah. Now they bring these kids along. It's just like high school athletics.
Frank, because back then he was looked at kind of like in the godlike status of like, the other guys.
I mean, no, he was a great fighter. I mean, you don't win 5 UFC belts by sucking. So there's no.
But he was doing something everybody wasn't. He was one of the first to truly cross train. I mean, I remember coming out and doing the protest and just him opening my mind to how to train like a professional athlete. I think up until then, you just trained martial arts and you went out and you fought your heart out, but you didn't train like a professional athlete, and he brought that to the table.
Exactly. Yeah, he was training the other disciplines, and there were guys doing that too. But then I think really the conditioning side, was really where he excelled at, because I mean that wasn't apparent until the Tito fight, right? Because he basically just let Tito tire himself out and then beat Tito down. So, but he definitely was one of the first ones to really cross train, to go find Javier, or first it was Maurice Smith. To find a striking coach, to go to Stanford and meet the Stanford wrestling team and wrestle with those guys. And then obviously he had the submission stuff from Ken. He didn't really do jiu-jitsu, but maybe a little bit later. But at that time, it was still, they were trying to put the Shamrock name above the Gracie name. That was the big rivalry back in the day.
I remember that, yeah.
Was it like intimidating training with him because of his status at that time?
I don't think so at all. No, I mean, he was super nice. He picked me up in person from the airport when I flew in from Japan, and I was actually shocked at how personable he was. At least, coming from somebody that didn't know him from anybody. I literally got invited to the test by sending an email from Japan saying, "Hey, Frank, my name's Ryan. I'd love to go out there and test for your team." I think today you might not receive a reply as far as how big the sport is today. You don't get access as easily. But it was just a really small, close-knit, sport back then, and everybody was accessible, and Frank was really personable, at least from my experience.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and even though we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, it's not like I have animosity towards the guy. I think it was more like he was at the top, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Frank's the alpha, but it's like if you're in MMA and if you're in MMA and you're not trying to get to the best promotions and be a world champion, you really shouldn't be in the sport.
Yeah.
Right. And to have that mindset, like Ryan would, we're alphas as well. Right. So it's like we're trying to be the best we can be and try to fight the best fighters. And he's already doing that. So it's not like we're not looking at him as like fans would. We're not looking at Frank like fans. We're looking at him as somebody that we want to be as good or better than. And so egos and testosterone are going to clash in that type of an environment. You know what I mean? And that you see it today. That happens with the big teams, at AKA, at ATT, at any of the big teams. You may not hear about it publicly, but there's always going to be.
There are going to be clashes. Yeah. That's true.
So, but it was good times, man. I can't, it was like you're hanging out with the guys fighting for UFC titles and you're going to fights with them and you're, doing crazy things sometimes on the weekends. And, there's a lot of good memories there with a lot of other guys as well. Cause Crazy Bob was there and there were the other fighters that were trying to come up with us. And it was, there's a lot of stupid decisions, but a lot of great memories. So it was good times.
Yeah, Crazy Bob kind of fell off the face of the earth, Well,
he's still doing it. Still head coach out there.
I mean, as a public face.
He's actually not the coach at AKA anymore. I found that out in July when I went out. Ron Kessler's the head coach.
Ron is. I remember
there was drama. So, and I mean, I was privy to it a lot after the fact, but it's not something I'm not going to talk about it here because I have one side of the story and I wouldn't really want to pass judgment on anybody because I mean, there's a lot of history. Like I've known Crazy Bob 24 years or something like that now. So, and Javier the same amount of time. So
I will say, like, Bob was the first to open his house to, fighters, myself included. When I moved over, he was like, here's a room, get your career. First to open his door.
Yeah. I remember not my first fight because I was with Frank then, but when Frank tried to go movie star, and Bob kind of took over the Shamrock side of it before it became the AKA thing.
Yeah.
So he got me my first fight, and we went down. He's from the Fresno area, and we went down there. And he actually kicked his wife out of the master bedroom so that I could sleep in the master bedroom because I had to cut weight and get ready for the fight. And I was like, hey man, I can sleep on the couch. It's like, no, you take that room. That's the best room. And that made an impression on me.
100%, man. Yeah.
He's that kind of guy. So
visible as part of that team then, And I really haven't even heard his name in years, it seems like.
But I think like a lot of the fighters, we've all had a story of where at one point or another you slept at Bob's house for one reason or other. Sure. He was looking out for you.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what he's doing now. He's still managing a couple fighters. I think he's still part of the Zinkin entertainment or the Zinkin management group. I don't really know what's going on with that. I wish him well. I'm sure he'll be successful at what he's doing now. And obviously AKA is still at the top of the game. So they really haven't missed a beat, even though several of the fighters have moved on, but still one of the top camps. So
yeah, be doing something right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you guys remember about fighting in Hawaii when y'all came over there?
That was really the first time like I had to cut weight because Frank, at the time I was probably like 200 pounds and Frank was like, oh, the fight was at 187. And I took it on really short notice. And that first fight I talked about with Jason Godsey was like maybe I'd have to go back and check the dates, but it was like I think I fought on a Friday and then I fought the next Saturday in Hawaii or something like that. And that what I remember the most is making the weight because that was the first time. And it was only 8 pounds. That's like not really a big cut.
No,
but I remember I was feeling all funny and like Ryan and one of these other cats, they wanted to go take a walk on the beach. And we went and walked on the beach through the sun. And then I think that really messed me up because the next day, like I didn't know about rehydrating, doing all that stuff. So then we walked on the beach for like an hour and a half, checking out, Waikiki. And the next day I was like, I had like tunnel vision. It was all from like,
no, none of that. I don't think you ever told me that.
You don't remember any of that?
No.
I was like, you don't remember Frank was like, oh, it's probably the nerves. And I was like, hey man, this isn't just nerves. I mean, you're always nervous a little bit before fighting. Yeah. But it was more than nerves because I'd never had tunnel vision before. So it was not understanding the rehydrating or the dehydrating, rehydrating cycle because we I just did it on a whim.
Yeah. And now they feel like they got weight cutting down to a science, right? But back then we were just kind of winging it and damn.
And I had never wrestled, so I wasn't used. I didn't know any. Wrestlers were used to that, but
cutting weight,
not many other people. I was a basketball player, so it was like, you didn't think about cutting weight, and so it was just okay. I just need to get the weight, and everything else will take care of itself. Luckily, I won, so it was.
Yeah, we came back. We both won that day. I mean, with weight, I remember I went up a weight class to avoid cutting. My diet wasn't going well either. I'd just come back to America for a short period of time, and my diet was I'd gained weight. I always do here in America, or when I'm in America. And I don't think I even had to cut for the fight because I went up a weight class for that fight.
Yeah. I don't remember that either. I remember sitting in the sauna with all these other dudes, all the Hawaiian dudes, the Jesus is Lord fighters. Everybody's packed into this one sauna. And everybody was just making weight and hanging out like bros, even though the next day we were going to battle.
Right. Whatever. Hey, Todd, do you ever know what happened to Jesus is Lord Jim? Or are they still doing that?
Ray Cooper, obviously you saw his son win the PFL.
And Kai Kamaka was fighting Kai Kamaka's son was fighting in the UFC.
Okay.
Ray, his son, I think Ray is primarily training his son at his house and out of his garage. Ray has a couple of brothers that are big guys too. They don't fight, but he's got a brother Blake and I forgot the other guy's name. But they all train together with Ray Cooper Sr. And then Bob Ostovich still has the Jesus Lord team.
Okay, yeah.
And his daughter was fighting in the UFC up until recently as well.
Right, and Ronald Jun was kind of doing his own thing. He had another team, so they kind of went different directions, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ellis was saying when they went to Hawaii for the first time, they went out because fighting was like space exploration. People didn't really know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Surf like the day before, and they were just totally exhausted when it came time to fight because they didn't realize that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Paddling out there and doing all that stuff.
Exactly.
It's like you're kind of learning on the fly, just like you guys had talked about.
Yeah.
Bobby, we kind of talked about the fights last night. Did you watch any of them or have any thoughts on any of them?
Yeah, I thought it was a good night. I mean, obviously, the shocker in with Pena choking out Amanda Nunes, but that was a shocker. But I thought it was a great night of fights overall. I feel for Dustin Poirier. Obviously, he's such a great guy and such a great fighter. I was pulling for him. Not that I was against Charles Oliveira, who's also a great fighter, but I mean that was an amazing fight because Dustin hit him with shots, multiple shots that have put other fighters away.
Yeah, he was that first round, right?
Yeah, that was an awesome fight. There were some good fights on the card. I got to say, it was just I'm still trying to get over the fact that Amanda Nunes lost. You know what I mean? It was like I think everybody's still like, whoa, like tripping off that. So, but it still was a good fight
for the first time and have to fight through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend was telling me, it's the person you don't expect to do it is the one who does it. Like, people are waiting for Shevchenko to maybe rematch her, but instead, this Pena comes along and takes her out. He was kind of comparing it to Buster Douglas. Like, they were waiting for Tyson to fight Holyfield. This guy comes along and does it to him, you know?
A lot of us were overlooking Juliana, myself included. I didn't see her winning at all, but hey, she got it done.
She did. I mean, I could see her having, I mean, I figured she had a shot. It wasn't like, I don't know what they had on the odds or on paper or anything like that. I don't really pay attention to that, but definitely Nunes, you know, I think of her more as a striker. So I was thinking if Pena could get it to the ground, she would have a chance. Even though Amanda is pretty good on the ground as well, I figure Pena's ground game was a little bit better than hers, considering that's like her, I won't say her specialization, but I didn't think that she would be able to get past the heavy hands, right? But she ate, similar to Oliveira, she took Amanda's best shots. And I think you could see that on Amanda's face is like, what is it going to take to put this bitch down? And that kind of messed with her a little bit. And that kind of gave Pena the edge, you know, I think. Still a shocker. I still didn't think she was going to do it, but we'll see what happens. I mean, there needs to be a rematch, I think, and we'll see what happens then.
Running it back, right? And Amanda probably does deserve it. She's been so dominant, so maybe they do jump right into a rematch.
And I think it's good for business because there's 2 more fights possibly out there, right? 2 more, and now there's going to be drama, right? I mean, I'm not a promoter or anything like that, but if Amanda comes back and takes the belt back, that puts up another trilogy that's going to sell pay-per-views, right? So it's good for the sport.
Ryan said that Nunez kind of her technique went a little bit south when she got hit,
right?
Out the window to some degree.
She started losing punches, and she just looked like a different fighter.
I think on a couple different levels, I think she got fatigued, so her technique definitely dropped. I think mentally, I don't want to say she broke, but I think definitely she got a little bit frazzled when, one, she was landing shots that weren't backing Pena up.
Yeah.
2, I don't know if you go back and watch, Amanda's like overextending on her jabs, like not with her arms, but lunging from too far out. And Pena was hitting her with some short jabs.
Well, she was
both were connecting, but Nunes was the one that was going back. And that was because of the head-on collision effect, right? She was jumping so hard in and not expecting to get hit and getting caught with jabs that she wasn't seeing. And I think that was messing with her as well. So, it was a good fight, and I definitely think they should run it back. And I definitely think that on a couple different levels, Nunes definitely was shocked by what was happening in the fight. But it was a great fight.
And she kind of tapped at the end, maybe more to what was happening rather than the technique.
It looked like she started tapping before the choke was all the way sunk.
Right.
It looked to me like the arm was going around the neck when it finally got under her chin, and she just started tapping, and it didn't look like Pena had closed the choke.
Waiting to call it quits.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan mentioned something. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Ryan was kind of saying, that Oliveira getting his takedowns, and also the guy who fought Eric Anders, I forgot his name. But he's saying some of the American fighters, maybe they've adjusted to the double and the single. Now they're kind of getting caught in these takedowns that the Brazilians were doing a long time ago.
Oh, the clinches? The trips?
Yeah.
I think there were, even on some of the undercard fights, there were a lot of fighters pushing for the clinches and hitting some nice inside trips and some outside trips. And I mean, that's a part of wrestling. And if you're not putting in the time and working on what you have in your gym, whether it's a cage or you have wall mats, if you're not working against the wall, at least in modern MMA, that's a skill you have to develop. Cage wrestling is a little bit different than straight wrestling, and you can see
together.
Go ahead, Ryan. Were you going to say something?
No, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying, it's a different skill set altogether. You can wrestle right out in the open, but getting up against the cage or the wall or whatnot, it's working takedowns from there and how you defend them, because you can't just sprawl off the ball as you would out in the open, right?
Yeah, and that's so open field wrestling, right? If you can get the guys down out in the middle of the cage, away from the wall of the octagon.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the freestyle wrestlers, they were excelling with that and still will excel with that. But back in the day, I think that's one of the reasons why, like Matt Linlin, Randy Couture, the Greco guys, that's why they had such success on the cage, was because it wasn't about getting to the hips. It was about the legs, the tricks, and the upper body stuff. And I think that played well into the cage wrestling aspect back then. And it's just something, a skill people, you need to recognize that that's something you need to develop. And if you're not working on those skills, it's going to be a long night if you get stuck on the cage with somebody who's good at it. You know,
we've seen that with Khabib, right? He gets everybody who's with their back to the cage. There's
something that you don't realize too, is like the guys who are good at, you see everybody, they get taken down and they scoot for the cage. Well, the guys like Khabib and guys who have good cage wrestling skills, you think you're helping yourself, but you're actually helping them. Yeah, because you've scooted to the place where they want you, and then they're going to put you down there, and you're getting stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? And then it's raining meteors. So it's not the smartest thing. So if you're going to scoot to the cage, you better have good cage wrestling skills, or it's going to be a long night, especially if you're fighting one of those Dagestani guys or if somebody else who's skilled at cage wrestling. So,
what'd you think of O'Malley? We talked about O'Malley a little bit. I wonder what you think of him.
I mean, does he have a good skill set? Yes. Does he talk a good game? He's like the kind of the American version of Conor McGregor. I still think he hasn't been tested. Raulian Paiva is a good fighter, but he's a lower echelon fighter in that weight division. So knocking that guy out and claiming to be a world beater, I don't think that victory like deserves that. He fought Chito Vera. You've seen what Chito Vera is doing at 135, and he claims that he didn't lose that fight, and you did lose that fight. It doesn't matter that you kicked the guy and he checked and you broke. I mean, that means that Chris Weidman didn't lose his fight, or Anderson Silva didn't lose their fight when they kicked and injured themselves to the point where they couldn't continue. Yes, they lost. Yeah. You got to accept that. But we'll see. I mean, he's talented. Don't get me wrong. He's a talented striker, and he has very good fight IQ on the feet. We haven't seen him on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a challenge. We'll see what happens when he goes against a good wrestler, if that wrestler can deal with his movement, his angles, and his length. And when that wrestler puts him on his back, we'll have to see how O'Malley responds. He's definitely talented, but he's not going to be fighting for the belt anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, yes.
In there with Cruz?
Upper echelon, right?
Do you think they put in there with Cruz next?
Maybe.
They've kind of had some back and forth.
But then with Cruz, that's a good fight, but Cruz is he's on the wrong side. They always talk about being on the wrong side of 35 or whatever year it is that you're on the wrong side. So Cruz, I think you saw a little bit of that in his fight with I can't remember the young assassin, the guy he fought last night.
Munoz.
Yeah, Pedro Munoz. I think you saw a little bit of that, but the one thing that you did see with Dominic is I mean, you see what makes a champion. You saw what made a champion in that fight. He dug deep, and he made the adjustments, whether it was in the corner between the rounds or whether it was during the rounds, and he was making these adjustments on the fly, and that's what got him the victory. And that's definitely what makes champions. If Amanda Nunes' corner or Amanda Nunes had been able to do that, I think she'd still be the champion. You know what I mean? And those adjustments weren't made. I don't know what was said in the corner, and I don't know what was going through her head, and I'm a fan. I'm not trying to talk her down, but you see the difference there. Like, Dominic Cruz is a multiple-time world champion in his corner, and he himself made the adjustments during the fight that got him the victory in a tough-fought battle. Nunes her corner and herself didn't make those adjustments, and unfortunately the belt, it traded hands. But that's the fight game. You know what I mean? It was Peña's night. I mean, what can you say? I still don't think she's the better fighter. It was just that last night was her night.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I thought they would put him in there with Cruz maybe because of what you said. He's on the wrong side of 35 or whatever. So maybe it would be the ideal time to do that match if they were going to do it.
If they were, but that may not be. It may or may not be fair to Dominic. You know what I mean? It's tough to say. And in those situations, you see this happen a lot. It's also going to depend on what your relationship is with management, right? It's like you're the aging guy, and you've had a great career, and you're shitting on the organization. Then the organization's is going to shit on you, and they're going to throw young gun after young gun at you and try to get you out. But I don't know. I think Dominic is competitive in that fight. I think he can hang with O'Malley on the feet. You know what I mean? It'd be an interesting fight because I think O'Malley has the length and he has the youth. Mm-hmm. But Cruz has, his fight IQ he really does have a high fight IQ, and his style of fighting, I don't think really plays into O'Malley's style of fighting. So I'd like to see the fight. It's a tough one. It's too tough to call. You know what I mean?
It could go either way, but yeah, I'd like to see it too.
Yeah. If Dominic can implement his wrestling game and put O'Malley on his back. Does anybody know if O'Malley has a ground game? As I haven't seen any fights where the only fight I saw where he went to the ground was where he sat down after the kick in the Cheeto Vera fight. That's the only time I've actually seen his butt on the canvas. So
yeah, I don't even know if he has a ground game. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see.
Seeing Dominic fight that way, does it make you feel like, you guys are both fighters. Do you think he's thinking, well, I just had this good fight against this guy, and he's young and good, and I can just keep going for a long time?
As a fighter in your mind, I still think I can get into the cage, and I'm 52, and I'm 40 pounds overweight, 40 pounds above fight weight. It's, that's the fighter mentality. You're always thinking can, you're not thinking can. Until your body will let you know, or your opponent will let you know. You know what I mean?
Once you get out there on the mats, or you put the gloves on, sometimes it's a little bit of a reminder here that you can't forever.
We were just talking positively about Dominic Cruz. Tamira, she loves Dominic Cruz, the girl in the comments here. No, we were talking positively about him. Bobby had a lot of good stuff to say about him.
Yeah. Oh, Dominic definitely still has fights in him, and I think the O'Malley fight favors him, but there are a lot of intangibles that go along with that, and that's all comes with that age factor and the mileage that he has on it. Yeah. Not necessarily the age, but more Dominic does have some mileage on him. Most of his layoffs over the last couple of years have been due to injuries and recovering from injuries, and those are going to play a factor in a fight with the younger fighter, in my opinion. But it's still a fight I would like to see, and I still think Dominic has some good fights left in him. It's just going to have to be the right fights. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think UFC is going to push for that fight. Not because I think O'Malley, because they had a back and forth, I feel like UFC thinks O'Malley will get past him. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I wonder if they're going to give O'Malley a top 5 opponent yet, though. Because
he hasn't even fought a top 10 opponent yet.
Well,
yeah. And what's Dominic Cruz rate?
They were 9-8 last night. I'm not sure who was where, but I remember those numbers.
Okay.
So has O'Malley fought a top 15 guy yet?
No.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to knock the kid. I think he's a talented fighter. He's no Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I need to see him. I like watching him fight. Don't get me wrong. Just because I like his style of fighting, I just don't know if that's going to carry him against the upper echelon of the division. But time will tell. He's a young guy. He's a young guy, and he's developing and learning on the fly. So time will tell.
Because I think they're going to look and say, who could we put him in with that he has some heat with, that maybe he could beat, or have a chance to beat. And, Cruz will engage with him and all the talk, the back and forth.
Yeah.
Cruz will talk as much crap as he does. So they probably think, let's put him with Cruz.
He'll eat O'Malley alive in the verbal exchanges. Dominic, he's a smart guy. You know what I mean? And sometimes I see O'Malley struggling in his interviews. So I think if they do that fight and then the press conferences and all the promos, I think Cruz will be eating him alive verbally. It'll be. I'll feel bad for O'Malley.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It only matters who wins in the cage. So
exactly.
I wanted to ask you about Garbrandt. Me and Ryan talked about this. I mean, Ryan no longer fights. You no longer fight. You know, Garbrandt's had, I think he's been knocked out 4 of his last 5 fights. What do you think he's thinking right now? I mean, you guys decided to stop fighting at some point. How hard is that?
I feel for Cody. I've never been a fan, and I feel for him because I feel like nobody really likes him. But I also have experienced that. Like, he didn't look good on his reality show season. I didn't look the best on my reality show season, so I get that. But I've never really been a fan, and I'm always happy when he gets knocked out.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he's a one-trick pony, man. It's like, if he can't land his right hand, or if he can't land a decent combo, he's not going to win the fight. And if he's getting pieced up, I don't know. 4 knockouts in I don't know how many years it's been. I think sometimes guys, when they get knocked out like that, they want to get right back in the cage, and you need to give your brain time to reset. There's some neurological stuff that goes down on there, and I think the minimum amount of time before you should fight again would be like 6 months. And that's 6 months of like non-contact. You're not even doing light sparring. You're not doing anything that even has a chance to like check your brain. And I was lucky Javier, Mendez, he was very adamant about those things. Like, if you got knocked out in the gym, or if you got knocked out in the fight, like, he would not let you come in. You could train.
Really?
You couldn't do any type of sparring. Like, his minimum, like the 45 mandatory knockout or the 60-day mandatory knockout, depending on what state you're fighting in, that's not enough time to let the brain reset. And that's why so many of these guys are coming back to fight, and then they're stuttering and drooling on themselves 2 years later. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I feel bad for those guys, and I mean, I haven't, just from the train, I mean, maybe I had like 20 fights and 12 years of training at AKA, is like, sometimes I feel like I have some neurological impairments, some memory issues. Sometimes I find myself like stuttering and like grasping for the proper word. You've probably seen me do it a couple times just in this conversation. So it's like,
but back in the day, we were doing, remember, it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
You were those hard ones in. I think that's a little bit excessive today in today's MMA. And, maybe once a week is enough to just cut down on the damage that we're taking.
I agree. And that's what I remember there was an article where in like MMA fighting or something, where Extreme Couture was talking about how one day a month they have this green lighting day where you can go out and you can throw, and you're not trying to knock the guy out, but you're throwing your punches to land, right? And if you're throwing, that's when guys get knocked out. And John Fitch made a comment. He's all, yeah, that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday at AKA.
Yeah.
Every day, every week. It's not one day a month. So we were kind of known for that kind of sparring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have shoot box, those guys were doing that 3-4 days a week, and they were wearing the little gloves. We were wearing headgear and big and 16-ounce gloves and shin guards, and those guys are going no shin pads, no knee pads, little gloves, no headgear, and they're fucking murdering each other. So,
but I mean, Garbrandt moves down to 25, and for that to happen to him, he's got to be thinking like, holy shit, I thought I was going to run through this guy.
I think it's too much of a weight cut. I forgot about that. I forgot he went down a weight division, because he started didn't he start at 45, or did he start at 35? 35,
I believe, yeah.
I think that's too much of a weight cut, because he did look visibly bigger than Kai Kara France. Mm-hmm. And the first good shot he took, it was, but that could be the weight, but that could also be the other 3 or 4 knockouts before, that neurological stuff that goes on, like we were mentioning earlier.
Oh,
it's tough for him. It's tough. I feel for him. I mean, the guy was on top of the world champion, and, it's a fall from grace like that is tough, man. I feel for the guy.
Yeah. That's kind of what we were talking about. I was kind of wanting to know what you guys thought, as far as, because you you both stop fighting. Everyone does stop fighting at some point.
Yeah.
He's young. This is the thing too, though. I fought till I was 40, but you look at it's a totally different game. The first UFC didn't even air until 1993. I was 24 years old then. So you have 24-year-old fighters. I mean, at 24 years old, I think Max Holloway already had 15 UFC fights and was champion. You know what I mean? It's like there are these kids coming in. So it's a different world, you know? I mean, I didn't have to fight, but I kind of wanted to fight just because I hadn't been in the game that long. But when Max Holloway hits, my first fight was at 31. I was 31 years old, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an older. I was born in '69, so I'm an older dude. And
you're 10 years older than I am. Okay.
Yeah. So you look at Max Holloway. I don't even think he's 31 yet, or maybe he just turned 31. How many fights does that guy have? 30-something fights. 25 of them have been in the UFC. I mean, that's a lot of mileage. I mean, he has more just UFC fights than I have fights, total MMA fights, not kickboxing and boxing. But, you know, that's a lot of mileage. And I think for everybody, I'm not going to say the mileage is the same, but miles accumulate. And I didn't feel in my body or in my head that the miles were accumulating, because I still had the desire to train, the desire to prepare to win, you know, to put that time in. And I think when you get to the point where you don't have that desire, you still want to fight, but you don't have the desire to prepare to win or to prepare to fight, then that's probably about the time to stop. And I don't know what Cody's feeling. I don't know what his preparation is.
Recognize that and say that, you know what I mean? Not everybody is aware of all that. And when right?
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think a lot of people even understand the preparation that goes on, because I was teaching jiu-jitsu, so I was morning class, evening class, training with my students in the morning and the evening, getting up in the morning to do my road work and my strength and conditioning, then going to the pro fight training Monday through Friday with the guys. And then if I had a fight, I would go back to AKA after doing training with my guys in the evening class and do the famous workouts that we had, this Airdyne workout. And then
I remember those. Yeah, those were brutal, man.
Yeah. So it's, you know, and I think about that now, and I think about, I don't do as much in a week as I used to do in a day. You know what I mean? And there's no way that,
training 3 times a day, right? I remember we were training 3 times a day, and then as I got older, I cut it back to like twice a day. Yeah. And I wouldn't do a fraction of that today. And life's different now.
How old are you now, Ryan?
I'm 42.
Okay, yeah, there you go. So yeah,
the time, but I'm not training 3 times twice a day though.
Yeah, twice a day is too much. There was a while when I was training with my guys, rolling in the morning and rolling in the evening, and then it just started to break my body down. You know? And I'm just training. I'm not training with black belts. I just have like whites and blue belts and maybe a couple of purple belts. So it's not like I'm training with like cyborgs or Nicholas Marigalis or guys like that. But I still feel it.
Well, cover like we used to.
Yeah, I know I'm taking up a lot of you guys' time talking about this, but
that's fine.
Yeah. Sunday night, I just ate dinner. I'm just lying on the couch, not really doing anything, so no biggie.
Those were the main fights I kind of want to talk about, because I usually want to talk about like 3 or 4 of them, because there's so many. But I just thought it was interesting to see. Maybe there was one we skipped over, but I think those were the main ones. As far as if you guys have any questions you want to ask them right quick, I could do that. But
sure. I don't have any questions myself. It was a good night of fights. I mean, I was very pleased. I gotta say this, the UFC's been fire lately. The last weekends, the free fights last weekend, they flipped the script, because for like 4 or 5 cards before that, all of the best fights, in my opinion, and best finishes had been on the undercard. And then on that free card last weekend, the main card had all of the finishes, and there were some really great finishes. So the matchmaking, I mean, their talent pool is just so deep. they're going to have to try to put crappy fights on. There's just too many good fighters on their roster. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And last night, I thought it was a really good card. It was a shocker. All the fighters I wanted to win or expected to win didn't always win. But I don't watch for that. I watch for the fight. You know what I mean? I want to see, even if it's my favorite person, I want to see a good fight. And then win or lose, I'm happy.
What do you guys think about Gane and Ngannou?
That'll be a fun one.
It'll be a fun one. I think it'll be
I think Gane can probably take the fight. I'm leaning towards Gane winning. I don't know why yet, but betting man, that's where my money would lie.
If it's a point fighting match, Gane is going to win. If it becomes a dog fight, I think that Ngannou can win the fight. But if Cyril can dance, you know how his style, dance around and chop those savate leg kicks and snap kicks at him and stuff like that, he'll dance around for 5 rounds and he'll win an easy decision. If Ngannou has the gas and the skill to press the fight and put him on the cage, put him on his back, and actually make him work, he can win the fight. But does he have that gas?
We're gonna see.
I wonder what you guys thought as people that, you know, you have your training partners, obviously. They used to train together in Paris.
Yeah.
Jim got the better of Ngannou at that time. Just because of technical skill, I would think. Do you think that would be a factor mentally for Ngannou maybe?
Possibly, but he's a different fighter now. And, I mean, the other thing that you have to think about with Ngannou is he's just such a raw talent. I mean, does the guy even have 12 fights yet? I mean, he went into the UFC on like 3 fights. Same thing with Gane, right? They both went in. They're so raw in terms of cage experience. You know what I mean? And the fight is going to be won by whoever can impose their physical will. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be it's not even a question of technique, right? It's whoever has the better cardio, right? And whoever can impose their game plan on the guy. Because that's where, in my opinion, Ngannou suffers is from a lack of cardio, right? He has all that muscle.
Yeah.
If he can work on that and he can keep a pace and keep up with Gane and press the fight, I think Gane is a better fighter at distance than he is up close. And that's what I mean by when I feel like Ngannou needs to make it more of a dogfight.
Yeah, I think the longer the fight goes, it's going to, go towards Gane. Probably for that reason. But, yeah, we'll see, man. I mean, if Ngannou lands his hands, it could be over in a second. So we saw what he did to Overeem, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Overeem's another one kind of like Garbrandt. You know, he suffered a bunch of knockouts all throughout his career, but especially near the end.
Yeah.
A bunch. I would say like a cornucopia. I mean, if you look back through Overeem's career, I'm surprised that the guy, I mean, he still speaks really intelligently. You know what I mean? It's like he's been, not to mention their training. I mean, he came up with that Golden Glory Core Hammers training. That training was pretty rough back in the day too. So it's when you brought up his name, thinking about Overeem still fighting it's just amazing to me, because I still remember when he already was kind of a name, and then Chuck knocked him out in Pride back in like 2000.
Oh, back in the day.
Right? Remember that? And here we are 21 years later, and he's still
doing it. Hey,
yeah.
Doing it, but yeah.
Something Ryan talked about, we talked about with Nunez. His technique looks like it's not even close to what it once was. You know, his punches aren't as, as crisp. It doesn't look technical. Overeem, yeah.
So he was training at Golden Glory, and Heath Herring trained at Golden Glory for a while, and I had the privilege to speak to him and talk about it, and he's talked about Core Hammers as a trainer. And I think as Overeem has moved away from that, I mean, I think he's doing his training at ATT maybe now. I'm not sure where Jackson's. I'm not sure where he's training at. But he's moved away from his roots, and he's an older guy. And I talked earlier about doing what it takes to prepare to win. I mean, he talks in his interviews about putting in the time and doing the right things for his training. But when you hear the fighters from his camp talking about it, it doesn't sound like he's doing the things that he says he's doing. So but he's still there. I mean, he's still competitive. He's still with the big boys of the biggest promotion. And I've always been an Overeem fan. I'm still an Overeem fan. So
he was going to fight Verhoeven, you know, and then he pulled out of that. I don't think that would have went well for him. Probably.
Oh, in kickboxing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't think that would have been going well for him at all.
Who was Overeem's last fight against? You guys know? Like
what, Volkov or somebody like that? And that's what I was talking about. He was kind of like winging and.
Okay. Yeah.
And this isn't Alistair Overeem, you know. This isn't.
Not the Alistair.
K1 monster that was just destroying everybody. You know, like his punches were kind of looping and.
Yeah. He's become a little more grappling centric too.
Yeah,
like he's been looking for takedowns and ground and pound.
I think he recognizes that his chin isn't what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we see that in how he fights and he approaches the fight now.
I know I think he beat Walt Harris with ground and pound.
Yeah, he did.
Maybe that was 2 fights ago. I'm not sure he fought the last fight.
Oh, when he top of somebody, you know.
Oh yeah, he's a big man.
He's gonna put a hurting on somebody for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. I mean, I took up some of your time, but
no, man, it's been fun though.
No problem. Yeah, good to see you too, Ryan, man.
All right, you too, Bobby, man. Hey, let me know if you're ever in Seattle, all right?
I'll definitely hit you up.
Yeah, Bobby, let me catch up with you sometime, man.
Hit me up anytime. Just hit me up on IG or Facebook or something.
All right, man.
All right, you guys have a good night.
See you guys.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, Ryan.
All right, man.
Good talking to you, man. Take care. Good luck on quarantine.
All right, thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right.